Hey everyone, Shadow Rockets here, and on today's episode I'm going back to Halo lore to discuss the Spartan 1s, otherwise known as the Orion Project. Now today I'm sorry I don't have any Halo gameplay for you. That's just because I haven't actually been playing Halo lately. I haven't been playing much of anything. I've got some Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 gameplay. Maybe I should get some Halo footage if I'm gonna keep doing some of these Halo lores. It would only make sense. But I do want to say before we get into this that this coming week I'm going to be doing probably sticking with Halo lore this week or self-help this week, and then next week I plan on actually doing a series of videos with Dr. Irrational again, so look forward to that. It's very different and unfortunately pseudo-politically charged, but not really politically charged. We're looking at it from a historical perspective. Anyway, friends, I've already wasted a minute of our time, so let me get right into Project Orion. And Project Orion was an interesting grouping of individuals. They were all volunteers, and they were controlled by mainly the Colonial Military Authority, but or the CMA, as I'll say from now on. But it was kind of taken charge of by Oni at some point in time in history. Now, it was the CMA's Super Soldier program, and it was aimed at security and counterintelligence operations, which was right around, it was initiated right around the 23rd century, and it was deemed very cost ineffective, and so it launched later during the insurrection, which was when the outer reaches and the outer colonies decided we don't like the UEG trying to maintain control over the colonies when they were initially intended to be a confederation of independently governed worlds. So essentially they were kind of feeling the American taxation without representation syndrome sort of thing. So I want to kind of get into it. I've sort of already talked about these individuals from Project Orion. They kind of underwent the same things as the Spartan 2s, the same augmentations and whatnot, but not quite as good or the same. I mean, I don't want to say it's the same, but not the same. I mean, they had got muscular enhancement injections, pulmonary respiratory enhancements, retina inversion injections, cochlea enhancement tunings, just the same as the Spartans and Spartan 2s. In addition to physical enhancements, mental augmentations were performed, just so that they could think a little better, enhance brain functions, enhance their learning capabilities so that they learned faster and higher rate than other people. They also wanted to enhance their motor skills and improve their overall body movements, which makes sense if you're trying to create a super soldier that you'd want all of these things. But in the end, these were all volunteers. They were humans. They were already indoctrinated. They were all already active duty. All 65 initial volunteers made it through the rigorous training that included tests on mental and physical aspects, and it also included work done in the lab. They were placed on active duty pretty much immediately after they completed their training and procedures, and they actually had a very successful initial deployment. They got good funding, the CMA did, for training the next group of Orion super soldiers because they were just so successful against insurrectionists and counterintelligence, counter-insurgency, I guess I should say, and generally black operations. So within a few years, the Orion program actually had about 165 active duty personnel, which is pretty impressive for a Black Ops style of program, especially knowing the Spartan programs later and their success rates. Very interesting to see its origins, essentially. I mean, performance enhancing equipment was used for decades after the beginning of the Orion project, and actually since then in the Halo universe it has been used just because it was so effective, and obviously they've gotten a little more rigorous with their enhancements, but a little better every time. Now, when civil wars were intensifying in the outer and inner colonies, many of the CMA's resources were taken over by ONI and the UNSC, which is, like I said, when they kind of relaunched Orion and kind of took over all of their resources. Now the CMA still kind of maintained control, but it's kind of like a, hey, I'm pulling rank on you sort of thing. So the project began again in January of 2491 with 65 test subjects, and after completing their training, an additional 100 volunteers were accepted into the now dubbed Spartan program. So that is the change now from Orion to Spartan, and this was post-ONI taking over. The first Orion deployment was in January 12th, 2496, and it was called Operation Charlemagne. And during this operation, a full unit of Orion super soldiers were deployed. They were to recover the suborbital transit station over Eridanus 2, and this was the only time a full unit of Spartans were ever deployed in the entire program, and they completed this mission with only a single casualty and without being seen. The resulting success of Charlemagne and tales of the military deploying advanced super soldiers were born and spread like fire from then on, and this was actually fuel for a range of conspiracy theories and media speculation about the government. However, years later down the road, ONI actually used this as propaganda, so I mean, hey, to each their own. As the war against the insurrectionists actually continued to escalate because they just didn't stop from that point, the UNSC stepped up their counter-insurgent activities, and it was titled Operation Trebuchet. Now, this was created in response to the defector UNSC Marine Colonel Robert Watts actually coming into prominence, and the Orion super soldiers were key members in the fight against the rebel attacks across the colonies. Their job was literally to take down insurgents as soon as they cropped up, and as time went on, insurgent attacks became actually more effective, and insurgent personnel were more difficult to root out because of the constant use of these tactics, these Orion soldiers, so they kind of learned, they adapted. Over the ensuing decades, these insurgents became even more organized and difficult to combat. So from then on, in 2552, the UNSC decided to put forth Operation Kaleidoscope, and this was part of their greater plan to pacify the entirety of human colonized space, and many Orion super soldiers were deployed to take down insurrectionist strongholds. But one of the key goals was to eliminate a certain Gerald Mulkey Ander, and he was the leader of another major insurrectionist faction called the Secessionist Union. Although Kaleidoscope was pretty successful in dealing a heavy blow to the insurgents, it failed to pacify the colonies, leading to Operation Tanglewood, which was actually the last operation the Orion super soldiers participated in, and we don't actually know what happened other than it was made to combat the insurrectionist forces. And in 2506, 4 years after Kaleidoscope, the Orion project was actually deactivated, and the surviving members were just reassigned to other special operation units in the field. However, these soldiers often exhibited side effects as a result of their augmentations, and many were actually discharged from the military as a result of mental instabilities. In order to ensure secrecy, the side effects caused by the Spartan 1 augmentations are actually written out as a disease known as Boren syndrome, and I kind of want to talk about that another day. But many of the super soldiers actually just went on to retire, and some actually eventually had children, but due to these augmentations, their kids actually had to be given some form of injections to ensure no defects. So A little fun fact before we finish here. We don't know much about their equipment, but we do know that the children of the Spartan 1s are actually referred to as Spartan 1.1s. And there are actually 16 of these Spartan 1.1s, including Janissary James and Kevin Morales. Due to their parents' augmentations, actually, the 1.1s had to receive injections, like I said earlier, to ensure growth without defects, but a small vigilante group of 1.1s, which were seemingly led by Kevin Morales, actually formed a plan to fight the Covenant. But before this could actually come into fruition with these youngsters, the Covenant actually started invading Earth, and no one knows where they went following the attack on Earth. So that's a little interesting. They're still out there in the Spartan universe, and I wonder if they're going to do anything with that. I hope they do. I don't think they will, but I can hope. A girl can dream. Anyway, friends, hope you learned something. Hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Shadow Rockets out.